Antebellum is what happens when you take a really good concept, a bunch of cliches, a bunch of other shit, including The Village and the Black Christmas remake, put it in a blender, stir it all up, and serve it to a customer, and say, $20 please, and they'll look and say, wait a second, this isn't even worth half that. It's from two first-time directors, and by Christ does it show. I did not like this movie at all. It actually reminded me a lot more of the Black Christmas remake, and I'm pretty certain people are going to be getting upset, but I want you guys just to listen really quickly because I like the theme of it, and I like the way it could have tackled it, and the idea of systematic racism needing to end, and the fact that there are so many people that feel that we need to go back to the way things were is fucking bullshit. It's bullshit the way they think that, and I don't understand why we can't view people as equal regardless of skin tone. And it's like how Black Christmas did the whole thing between men and women, women fighting for equality and everything. But the thing is, how that movie dealt with it is they just made everybody caricatures. They didn't really feel like fully fleshed out characters. Barely, or at least, barely even the leads. They just felt like they were just almost cardboard cutouts, and they were just there to go from scene to scene. And that's the unfortunate thing about this movie. It takes an even better cast and makes them just one-dimensional. Barely one-dimensional in some cases. It's barely cohesive as far as a sequence of scenes. And it's not that the plot's hard to follow. It just doesn't really feel all that connected. It's not a very good movie. It's just simply not. The concept's there. The cast is there. Look, you got Janelle Monáe, who was great in Moonlight and Hidden Figures, and is a huge upcoming actress right now. I mean, actually, I would argue she's almost practically A-list. She is really fucking good. Jenna Malone, who I've loved since Donnie Darko and The Ruins, she was good in, she's really good in various movies. And then you got Kiersey Clemons, who was in Sweetheart. That wasn't a good movie, but she was good in it. Eric Lang, Jack Huston, and you got the girl to play Queenie, who in American Horror Story, that is also in this. The ingredients were there to make this work. And the trailer tried to make it all mind-bendy and stuff like that, and it's going to be all weird and goofy and everything, or maybe it's not going to be goofy, it's just going to be the scariest film you've goddamn seen. No, it just turned out to actually be pretty much something like The Village and the Black Christmas remake and stuff like that. And I'm going to spoil things, basically telling you that whole concept of The Village, where they were people living in 18th century, 17th, I think it was 18th century. And then that girl comes out onto the road and suddenly it's like they're just living in their own little bubble, but they're actually in, modern times. That's basically what this was. Only this one was done, it was done with a better cast, I will say that much. Even though The Village had a good cast, this one at least had things kind of happen. The problem is none of the characters were fleshed out at all. And you can only stretch a concept so long before you have to actually add some meat to it. This movie will be scary to anybody that isn't white, with the idea that you could be taken suddenly back to slave times and, Confederate times and stuff like that, and be, and have your freedoms taken away and basically be treated like subhuman, which was fucking bullshit for anybody to do, in the first place anyway, because we are all equal people regardless of skin tone and stuff like that. But the thing is you have to judge this as a movie. Because it can be scary, with the concept, but the movie itself is not scary at all. It's not interesting. The acting isn't necessarily subpar, but everybody's just kind of going through the motions. I mean, Janelle Monáe kind of sticks out a little bit doing a few decent scenes, but there are these long, stretched out slow-mo parts because they really didn't have a lot to this movie. They could have easily made this 80 goddamn minutes, and I don't think that they would have cut out anything that was really even relevant. Now, obviously, spoilers are going to continue here, but we get this long, drawn-out panning stuff of Confederate times and everything, and this woman gets, roped up and everything, and it's, it's basically Confederate soldiers being bastards. Eden is frightened, she doesn't know what the fuck's going on, and she meets a girl, Julia, Kiersey Clemons, and they try to figure out how to escape. Confederate soldiers are chanting blood and soil, and then we get this is less of a slow burn also, and more of we forgot to turn the goddamn burner on until about halfway through. Because you can do slow burn movies if you have a good payoff, but also it only helps if you have a good payoff and good characters. And this movie doesn't have good characters. It just kind of has, it has an idea and it doesn't know how to execute it beyond that idea. And that's very unfortunate, once again. So suddenly, boom, we're back in modern times, and it turns out that this was a whole damn thing by this woman, Elizabeth, to basically treat black people as subhuman. Jenna Malone plays Elizabeth, by the way. And that would have worked, except, again, it just evaporates. Just every bit of interest evaporates once you find out what the actual thing is. I mean, it's a stupid idea by anybody that wants to execute it. And I mean, like, let's take all these black people and, do this, basically put them on a cotton farm at this Civil War reenactment park. That's basically what it is. And that's just what is absolutely mind-blowing to me, is like, okay, hey, we're going to take the idea of the village, we're going to take the hitting you over the head with the concept of Black Christmas, the remake of Black Christmas. We're going to get a good cast, but we're not going to fucking do anything with it. Because you can take cliches and you can make them work and you can actually do some good stuff with it. And there are even some nighttime scenes where they just seem poorly lit. Like, it wasn't even like, hey, we're going to try to make these scary. Like, no, we're just going to do this, and we're just going to trust that the viewers can figure this out. And, it's like, oh, it sounds like a nice scene. I sure wish I could see it. And it's really, really frustrating watching this movie and not liking it when I wanted to fucking like it. It turns out Eden is this character, Veronica, Janelle Monáe. And she goes on this business trip. She has a husband and a daughter, and then Elizabeth ends up capturing her because she wants to treat people as subhuman, or anybody that's not white as subhuman. I'm not going to throw out the N-word, and do not throw it out in the comments. Don't. I'll allow a lot, but you will not throw that out in the comments. So, a young girl appears. Oh, you'll get in trouble for talking because, of the whole thing that they're hatching this plan. And then there's this dinner scene with, I didn't even catch the other woman's name, and the girl plays Queenie and Veronica, and they're having this scene, and then she takes this car that wasn't her Uber, she gets captured, and that's basically how this whole thing hatched. And, yeah, cool, whatever, it was, I'm sorry, this just wasn't very good. She does end up killing this character, Elizabeth, which actually was, I guess, the one decent scene, but it was so quick it barely had a payoff. And then she escaped. She's like, there's this long drawn out slow-mo thing where these guys are reenacting the Civil War. She's, in a jacket, on a horse, carrying an axe and everything, and she gets out of the park, and the police are there because she was able to get a hold of her husband and to talk on a cell phone and send a pin to, pin her location. And then they basically take down the park during the credits. So yeah, this movie can basically, as a movie, it can eat shit. As a concept, I like it. As a concept, I liked it, but this movie was not very good. Once again, it could be scary to anybody that isn't white. I mean, and I understand that. And I totally understand people don't like the review. That's okay. You guys are welcome to disagree. But I want you to understand that I liked the idea of the concept. I just hated the movie because it was poorly executed. It wasn't scary and wasn't even chilling. It would have been disturbing if any of these characters had any goddamn depth. They were just there. They were just cardboard cutouts. So anyway, yeah, it gets an F. It gets a goddamn F. It's one of the worst things I've seen this year. Not the worst horror movie, I guess, that I've seen this year, a psychological thriller or whatever it is. It was just boring. And then when the final reveal happened, like, oh, wow, the ideas I came up with were way better. It just, sometimes simple works, but it did not work in this case. F. Anyway, agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I'll see you soon.